straight from the heart of East Tennessee. This is 10 News at 5.
If people just start believing that it's going to be okay and regain their sense of self-confidence and start doing commerce with each other normally, I think that's going to go a long way.
The long climb out of the recession may be getting a little shorter for businesses, but are you seeing signs of economic recovery? Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Beth Haynes. Welcome back to 10 News at 5. The Federal Reserve says the economy's stronger and they're not going to touch interest rates because of it. But how long will consumer confidence hold out? NBC's Michelle Frenzen has a closer look.
The Federal Reserve left interest rates unchanged Wednesday, a sign the central bank believes the U.S. economic activity is leveling out. Key factors the recession may have hit bottom include median home prices up 4% last quarter, a surge in the stock market, and growing stability in the financial sectors. The committee says it expects inflation will remain subdued, but the optimism is guarded. The Fed will keep a close watch on other indicators, rising prices for commodities, crude, oil, and gas that are tied to the global economy. Analysts say for the Fed to avoid a double-dip recession, timing will be everything.
They have to pull back quickly and be fleet of foot in terms of not ruining the economy the other way, getting it overstimulated, which would cause hyperinflation potentially, which would be ruinous once again, but in a separate way.
A numbers game on the surface, but for millions of out-of-work Americans and businesses teetering on bankruptcy, it is a game of survival. In July, jobless numbers showed some improvement, but businesses are still cutting costs, and economists are concerned how long it could take for the unemployed to find jobs.
Consumers are still struggling with sluggish income growth, high unemployment, higher state and local taxes, and a lot of concerns about the loss of wealth in the stock market and the drop in their home values.
The real recovery, analysts say, will not be felt until the crisis in confidence lifts and consumer spending, the true engine that drives the economy, shifts into gear. Michelle Franzen, NBC News, New York.
Analysts say as countries like China come out of their own economic downturn, consumers here in the U.S. can expect energy prices, including gasoline, to go up. Well, locally, several companies have been rehiring workers who were laid off earlier in the year. But is that enough to say there's light at the end of the economic tunnel? All day we've been asking for your thoughts. Do you think we're better off than we were 6 months ago? The question has certainly had a lot of people talking on our website. Some are even sharing their personal stories. This person saying, for my family, it's gotten better. My husband was laid off for about 6 months, and he's now working again. We can't just go out and spend money like we used to. But I'm no longer calling creditors to make payment arrangements. A quarterly survey by Ackermann PR here in Knoxville finds East Tennessee business leaders are cautiously optimistic about the future, but most admit we're not out of the woods yet. Of the nearly 300 business leaders surveyed, 70% said they anticipate additional layoffs before the end of the year. But looking forward, 90% say they expect their revenues and overall business outlook will improve by 2010.
They cited some of the things that they're most worried about as being the continuing tight credit, that small businesses especially are not able to get loans, and so that's still a big, big worry. But there was less concern about the housing market and the stock market than we've seen in the past two surveys.
And most of the business leaders surveyed say they predict an end to the recession by December 2010. Well, the Blount County Economic Development Board says it's also seeing companies slowly begin to show more interest in bringing jobs to the area.
We're seeing a little more prospect activity. We're seeing a few more that are bumping from prospects to actually real interest. And then we've got a few that are close to signing deals.
Officials say they're not actively recruiting and hope for a full turnaround. They are actively recruiting and hope for a full turnaround by this time next year. Well, with regard to the job market, this viewer told us, I think the decline has leveled off. I have noticed the job section is getting a little thicker. Jobs are not as plentiful as they used to be, but it is better than it has been. East Tennessee's job market has had a tough year, but there are indications things could be slowly turning around. Last night, we told you about a Knoxville-based shoe manufacturer that will soon add a new facility and about 100 new jobs to the Morristown area. Wellco Enterprises makes military footwear for the Department of Defense. Officials say they hope to close on the new facility in Morristown in the next 30 days and will then begin the hiring process.
They predominantly will be doing the soling operation for the bottom of the footwear, because the uppers are made in Puerto Rico, and then we do the bottoming, the soling of the footwear here in Morristown. Morristown will also serve as the distribution center for Welco and one of our other subsidiaries as well.
Welco is investing a total of $8 million in the new plant. And a Maryville auto parts manufacturer recently rebounded from some of their economic woes after months of pay cuts and reduced work weeks. Increased work orders helped Denso employees finally return to a full work late last month. Earlier in the year, employees had been working 4-day weeks, and salaried workers had taken pay cuts to avoid laying off any full-time employee. Well, last month, Mastercraft Boat Company in Von Orr also began rehiring workers who were laid off earlier this year. Declining boat sales and an abundance of dealer inventory forced Mastercraft to halt production in January. Hundreds of employees from Monroe, Blount, and even Knox County were laid off due to the lack of work. But in July, the company began rehiring more than 200 of those workers to meet demand for boats.
You know, the first step was to get started up again, and we've done that, and we'll continue to push and do all we can do to get boats into people's garages and boathouses throughout the world.
The company's CEO says rehiring was based on both seniority and job flexibility. But despite the early signs of improvement, several people on our website say they're not breathing sighs of relief just yet. One viewer writes, the 401ks are inching back upward. 2 homes in my neighborhood have recently sold after both being on the market for 18 months. I find promise in those signs, but the unemployment percentage is still unacceptable. Stay with us. We're coming right back.